So the next part that we need to tackle is the login. So first off, let's head over to the auth.js store. First off, we're going to add some stuff to the state. So we need to add in a token, which is going to be null. Then we need to add in a user, which is also going to be null. And then we're going to add in some getters. So we need to we need to add a getter called isAuthenticated. Authenticated, like so. And we'll pass in the state there, and we'll open that up, and then this is going to return. It's going to return the state dot token, and it's going to return the state dot user, right? And then in here we're going to say get user, like so, and again we're going to have the state in there, and here this is going to just be a very simple one, return state dot user, like so. Okay, moving on very quickly because I don't want to spend too much time just so let's we're going to set the token like so, and we're also going to have the state, and then we're going to have the token that is going to be saved to the state when we change it. So we're going to say state token is equal to token. Very straightforward, right? And then we're going to set the user. Again, state user. I mean, you should start seeing a pattern by now, yeah, that would be cool if you are. So the state user is equal to the user. There we go, excellent. And what else do we need to add? Okay, so now we need to add an action inside of here, and it's going to be an asynchronous action. So we need to say async, and it's going to be login. And here we are going to do some funky stuff. We're actually going to dispatch this not commit, and the thing we're going to pass into login is the credentials, like so, like that. Let's give it a comma. Okie dokie, perfect. Let's just open it up for readability. Right, so what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say store commit, and then we're going to say set loading, like that, and we're going to say true. So what we can do in here is we can send the request, right? So the way we're going to do that is we're going to say we're going to assign it to a variable first, and we're going to say response, like that, and that's going to equal await axios dot post, and obviously it's going to go to the login endpoint, right? And then this is where we need to pass in those credentials, like so. Okay, and the only thing we're going to do here is we're going to just say catch, right? We're just going to catch any errors that might occur, right? And we will again we'll set the loading state to false, like that, and then we will just console log the error, like that. Oh, I see, I've made a bit of a typo there. It's on the wrong side of the like that. There we go. Okay, so what that'll do is you'll just stop the loading, and then it will dump anything into the console that we need to see. Right, so that's going to send the request, right? But it's not going to save anything to the state, right? It's just sending the request, and then we're going to get something back. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up in a very specific way. We're going to return a dispatch, and we're going to dispatch a action which is going to be called attempt, like so. And the thing we're going to pass into that is the response data, and then the token, right? But because we're responding with JavaScript, with a JSON thing, object from the backend, what we need to do is in here we need to say JSON pass, and then just pass in that response data token. So now the people that have been paying attention will notice that we don't actually have a method or an action inside of here called attempt. So that's what we need to rectify now. So we can say async attempt, and now this is where we're going to commit some things, right? So we'll need to pull in commit, and we'll also need to pull in the state, like so. And the thing we're passing in here is the token, like so. Okay. So let's do that, add a comma. Okay, excellent. So now what we need to do is we need to say, well, if there's a token, we want to commit that token, and we want to set the token, right? Oops, daisy, there we go. Set the token, and we're going to set it to that token. Crazy. But now that doesn't cover if there isn't a token, right? So we need to say, well, if there's no token, if state dot token, so if there's no token in the state, after this point we need to stop this, right? So what we'll do is we'll just say return, like that. We can throw in a try catch like that. There we go. Okay, so we've got a try catch block. A try catch block. Well, I'll try and say that 10 times quickly. Okay, so we've got a try catch block there, and what we're going to do in here, right, is if we've got a token, then that means we can now get the user, right? And we need to assign the user to the state. So let's do that. First off, we need to say we'll create another response variable. There we go. And of course this is going to be asynchronous, and we're going to use Axios, and it's going to be a get method this time, and what we're going to pass in here is going to be profile, like that, right? And we don't need to pass any data. We can't pass any data. It's a get request, doesn't have a body. So now what we can do is we can commit inside of here, and we can set the user, and the user is going to equal, again we're going to have to pass it, JSON pass, like that, response, and response data, like so, and there we go. That should cover it. So what we need to do in here is we need to make some commits, right? So we need to say, well, okay, if there's an error, we want to set that user as null, and if the we also want to set the token to null too, right? Like so. There we go. Okay, so now let's see, is everything looking funky? It does indeed. So now we need to head over to the back end, and we need to create this profile endpoint that we don't have. So let's just go to the auth controller that we created, and in here what we'll do is we will I mean, technically we could create another another controller and call it user controller, but I'm just going to put it in here, and it's going to be called profile. So public function profile, like so, and I'm just going to copy the route because I'm lazy, and it's going to be it's going to be profile user profile. There you go. Right, so I'm going to copy the JSON response, and I'm going to say the return type is JSON response, like that. And obviously that user doesn't exist. It doesn't exist yet. What we need to do in here is we need to get the current user. And the way we can do this is we can say this security, get user, like so. Okay, great. But the only problem is when we get this user, oopsie-daisy. I'm doing it inside of the response. So we shouldn't do that. Okay, so now we're getting the current user, but the problem being is this is going to be a PHP object, right? So that's no good to us. We're going to create a new variable called user, and then we're going to say this serialize, serializer, and then serialize, and then we're going to pass in the current user, and we want it to be JSON, and we'll just add a semicolon on the end there. Right, okay, so that's pretty much it, right? The only thing that we can add in here is we can say, well, we want the response to be 200, and here we can say the response is 201, which will give it the response of created, right? Just as a reminder, this is the register because we're creating a new user, right? So this will just tell it, okay, everything worked, great, wonderful. Okay, so that should be all good. Is there anything else we need to cover? I think we have covered everything. If we look inside of the security just one last time, we can see that we have a register, we have a login. Okay, so we need to change this to login. Yeah, that will do. Like so, and yeah, that should be okay. So now if we head back to the front end, we need to configure the login component. And again, I can't be bothered to type out all that HTML, so I'm just going to copy it from the register and remove what we don't need. Okay, so let's just remove, we don't need the name. Okay, so we can remove the name like so, and yes, we need to create we just need an email and we need a password. Okay, and now we just need to create the good stuff. So first off, what we'll do is we will map the actions like so. Oh, and thank goodness it's pulled it in for us, so we don't have to write that. And we're going to map in login, and then we give it the path, which is going to be auth login. And I like to keep it separate, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create another method. It's called submit, like so. And this is going to be an asynchronous method. And inside of here, we are going to say await login. Actually, we'd need to say this.login. And then again, we're going to say this form, which we currently don't have, right? So we need to create that. So we need to create the data property. And we need to say return, give it an object, and we'll, inside of here we create a form, and again we're going to have an email, and we're going to have a password, like so. Okay, so then now that's going to pass in that form, and these are already the V model is already attached to that because I just copied it from the register component, so it's already the same. So let's give it a go. So if we head over to the login page, there we go. It's still got the name of register. So we'll just change that. Where is it? Title login, because that could get very confusing, right? Okay, so now we can let's just inspect the page, just see what happens when we shoot this off. So let's open up the database. Okay, bob.com, bob at bob.com. Yes, bob at bob.com, bob at bob.com, and I think the password is that. So now if we hit OK or continue, there we go. We can see something's going wrong. Excellent. I love error messages. Okay, so what's happening here is we haven't actually configured the route correctly. So what we need to do is we need to go to the routes inside of the config directory, and inside of here we need to define the login endpoint, right? And the reason we're doing this is because we don't want it to point to a controller, because we're not doing it, right? It's the responsibility of the package we pulled in, that JWT lexic or whatever the hell it's called. So the path is going to be API /login, and the methods are going to be post, like so, and the defaults underscore format is going to be JSON, like so. We probably don't need all of that, but let's just keep it in for now. Okay, so let's go back to our login page and try the same request again. Okay, excellent. So we're getting a different error now, and it's telling us that the key username must be provided. So that's happening because inside of the packages security, we haven't defined what it should use on the login. So the way we can fix that is we go inside of here and we can say username path, and it's equal to email, and yeah, that's it. So now let's try it again, and something's happening. Okay, so we can see that we are getting a token as a response. However, we can also see that the loading state is not changing, right? It's just loading and loading and loading. So what we can do is we can do that here. We can say, okay, store commit set loading, and we'll say false. Yeah. So now what we can do is we can attempt again to log in with Bob as Bob, and there we go. Now we can see the loading is loading, and then it's stopping, and it's giving us some information. So we're receiving a token, which is fantastic. And then here, interestingly, it's telling us that we're unauthorized. And you'd think, well, why? And the reason being is because this is a stateless application. It has no reference of the last request. It has no idea that you've just logged in, basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to send the token that we received in the login. We'll send this token in every request subsequently once we've logged in. And the way we can do this is we can do this with something called a subscriber. And I'm just going to stick it in the store here. You can, if you want, you can create a separate directory and all that stuff, but I'm just going to put it in here. Subscriber.js, like so. So in here we need to import some stuff. So we need to import the store from the store, like so. Actually, I don't need that. We can just say the store main. There we go. Import. We need to import Axios from Axios, like that. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to access some pretty cool stuff. We're going to access the basically whenever Axios sends a request, we're going to change it. We're going to add some stuff in, right? And the way we can do this is we're going to do it with a mutator. Mutation. There we go. And what we're going to do, I'll just write this out, and then you can you'll see. So we're going to create a switch statement. I'm going to say case auth set token, like so. And you may have, this looks familiar, right? It should, because we're accessing the mutations, and this is the name of the mutation. So if we're accessing set token, then what we want to do is we want to say, well, okay, that obviously means that we are logging in, right? So therefore we can do some stuff. And that stuff that we're going to do is we're going to say if mutation.payload is so basically if there is a payload, then we can say Axios dot defaults dot header or headers dot common and then authorization. I'm terrible at spelling. And then in here we can say we want to have a pre-appended string. Actually, I'll give it the backticks like that, and that way we can just include it directly in there. So here we can say mutation.payload, like that. Right, so this is all a bit gobbledygook at the moment. Don't worry too much. Basically what we're doing is we're assigning this bearer token to the authorization header in every request that has this mutation name, or type rather, right? And then we need to save it. We need to save it somewhere. So we're going to save it in the local storage. We're going to say local storage set item token and mutation payload, like that. There we go. Now we need to give it an else statement, and we can say basically, if this is not the case, then we want to set this to null. And we also want to set the local storage token again, and then we can also remove this. Oops, we don't need that. We can just say remove item, like so. There we go. Okay. And I'll just add in a break like that. But we've not finished yet. We need to register this inside of the main.js. And the way we can do that is we can just come down here and say require store, actually, it looks like, yes, there we go, store subscriber, like so. And there we go. Okay, so now we can go back to the application, and we can try to log in again as Bob. And we'll send that request off. And there we go. So let's see what's coming back. We are getting the response with the user's data, user, and we are getting a login token. Fantastic. So if we have a look at this header now inside of our request, we should see here authorization bearer and then that token, which comes from the response of the login request. Which is pretty cool, right? But the only thing that we have left to do now is to, send the user somewhere, somewhere that's, like a home page, which we can do pretty easily inside of the login component. We can say here after the request, do something like that, and then in here we can access the router. We can just say this router dot replace, like that, and it's a method call, and then we're going to pass in an object, and we're going to give it a name, and that name is going to be dashboard, yes, like so. Okay, and obviously we haven't created that view, so we will do that now. Let's create a new template, and again, you know me by now, I'm too lazy to copy all that bollocks. Yeah, so let's just say dashboard, like so. Right, okay, so what this means is that this is obviously accessible by anybody, right? You can just come, oh, there we go, I already used it before. You can come and go to that endpoint. Well, actually you can't at the moment because it's not registered in the router, so we should probably do that. So we can say dashboard, like that, dashboard, BORD. There we go, and let's just pull it in from the views, like so. Okie donkey. Oh, and we need a comma there. Right. Okay, so now if we refresh it, we should be able to access that endpoint. There we go. Which obviously we don't want to do because this user isn't logged in, right? And that's, that's a problem. So we can do that in here. We can add something called before enter, like so. And basically what this is doing, it's like, we want to make sure, it's like before you go to this endpoint, we can do some stuff in here. So first off, what we want to do is we want to say, well, if there is no store, and we'll just say getter, and then an array auth / is, actually I'll just copy it from the auth because I don't want to make that mistake again. Is authenticated. Where were we? In the router. There we go. So auth is authenticated, right? So if we're not authenticated, then we want to return next. And we want to pass in an object, and we want to say name, and we're going to say login, right, like so. So basically this is saying, like, okay, if the user is not authenticated, then go away. However, if they are authenticated, then we can just call next. And this is a really cool way of doing it, really quick way of doing it at least. Okay, so I need to actually import the store from the store main, there we go. So I missed off an S from getters. If we head over to the dashboard page, and there we go, it's redirecting us to the login page. So what we're going to do in the inside of the dashboard is we're just going to add a computed properties object, and inside of here we're going to map the getters. Map the getters like so, and pass in an object. And the getter that we want to get here is we want to get the user, and that's going to be auth get user. Actually, I think we'll rename this just user. Okay, so now what we can do is we've now got the user object from the store, right? So we can just open that up and say user name, like that. Now if we head over to the login page and we try to log in as Bob and hit enter, there we go. We now get redirected to the dashboard, and the name of the user comes up. And if we go to the profile, we can see we're getting all that lovely data pulled in, and we're getting the token. Now, if I refresh this, what will happen? It's going to send us back to the login page. And the reason this is happening is because it doesn't know that we've essentially, Vue at least doesn't know that we've logged in. So the way we can fix this is if we head over to the main.js, and inside of here we can just add the store, and we're just going to dispatch auth attempt and then we're just going to grab the localhost storage, and we're going to get an item, and that item is going to be the token, like so. Then we're going to add a then statement, I don't know what they're called, and essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to copy all of that and pop it inside, like so. So now if we go back to the application and we go to the dashboard, and if we refresh the page, voila, we don't get redirected essentially, which is cool.